Spider-Man's Lost Hunt, which only came out a couple years ago.
Right.
How was the concept of being able to go back to that story and tell it in a completely different way, which we have not seen? It was a powerless Spider-Man in Portland. It was just way different than what we've seen Spider-Man in the last decade. How was it getting to write that, and how long did you have that story right up? Because that was, what, 30 years apart from Craven's Last Hunt to Spider-Man's Lost Hunt?
A good question.
And were you afraid to revisit that?
Yes.
Oh.
You know, the reality is I had just done the Ben Reilly series, which was set right when Ben became Spider-Man. And so they said, well, let's see what Peter's doing in the same period. And the reason there was any kind of Craven anything in that story is they thought that movie was coming out imminently, and that the word came out from Marvel, could you do something with Craven? And it's like,
Yeah.
Craven's already dead.
Yeah.
But I had this other character in the back of my head, Asia Arisha, who was a really interesting character, who it turns out was the one who inadvertently really trained Craven, and his mental illness turned him into, but he took this Wakandan culture and corrupted it and turned it into what he became within the context of Craven's Last Hunt. So what I really enjoyed about that series was developing that new character, because she had been in the back of my head for quite a while, because I felt like there were some missing pieces in Craven's connection to African culture, you know? And by bringing in this other character, who was a much more, shall we say, dignified character than Craven is, and I got to fill in the mythology, because you're always looking for something new. You want to say something new. You don't want these miniseries. I know you've done some of them too. People say, oh, they're like nostalgia series. Well, if it's just a nostalgia series, then don't do it. You have to find something new to say. You have to find something new in the psyches of the characters, in the events of the time, or else, you know, it's just, you might as well go back and read old comics, you know? So that's, with each of these sort of minis that I've done the past 4 years, 5 years, whatever it is, I've always tried to look for something new to say with the character.
And that's a great segue, because one of my questions too was the Clone Saga.
Yeah.
The Clone Saga. So the Clone Saga is,
Which is now beloved.
exactly.
You know?
I was in like high school when the Clone Saga came out.
Wasn't there a lot of bitching about that though?
There was
when it came
so
out,
much
yeah.
like nerd rage about the Clone Saga. and I
Do you want
personally,
the backstory?
yeah, please. If we have enough time, there's a lot of backstory.
I will try to I'll collapse
Yeah,
it
yeah.
down, because they could write an 800-page book about what went on behind the scenes with the Clone Saga.
Yeah.
But it basically started with an idea that Terry Cavanaugh had about bringing back the clone. I remember Danny Fingeroth called me up and said, so Terry has this idea about the clone, do you want to get in on it? I said, no.
Yeah.
Because it just sounded...
The clone had appeared in like what, one
in
issue?
the Jerry Conway
Yeah,
stuff,
in the
you know,
70s.
10 years before,
Do
15
you guys
years
know
before.
that story? Okay, so there's a
But-
Spider-Man clone.
But then we were having one of the big Spider-Man meetings where it was all the writers and all the artists, and Terry put it on the table again with the idea that, see, the guy that we've been reading about for the past X number of years is really the clone.
Wow.
And the guy that we thought that was the clone was Peter. I love stories about personal identity, like, where reality gets flipped, who we think we are versus who we really are. And I thought, that's a great idea, and everybody got very, very excited about the idea. And Tom DeFalco showed up day 2 of the meeting to tell us why we couldn't do the story, because he thought it was a terrible idea.
Yeah.
And we were so enthusiastic that not only did he agree to let us do it, he started writing Spectacular Spider-Man and became part of the team. The original plan was to do this in maybe 6 months, at most a year, get in, get out. Peter and Mary Jane go off and live happily ever after. Ben becomes Spider-Man. We were going to relaunch with #1s, new supporting cast, new villains. It's comics. Peter would come back eventually, but not for a while, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But what happened was, and this is where the mythology and the reality get flipped, oh, that was a big failure. No, it wasn't. It sold really well.
Yep.
And the marketing tail began to wag the dog,
Mm-hmm.
And, no, stretch it out, stretch it out, stretch it out. And then, the editorial shifted and it got out of control. We made some mistakes. They're not perfect stories by any sense, but there was a lot of good stuff in there. And at a certain point, I kind of put on my parachute and bailed, and it went on for a long time.
Yeah,
after that,
and this was also like the era of the speculators boom and
Yes.
very
And and then the bubble burst. But while the bubble was bursting, those Spider-Man books were still selling really well. They were kind of the last to fall. So this idea that it was a commercial failure is nonsense. It's not true.
Yeah.
And the other thing, going about how old did you say when you were reading them?
I'm 48 now, so I was
You child.
I know. I was probably
you were-
17.
Oh, okay, so
16,
and there are a lot of, the comics that you read when you're 12 or 15 are the ones you love forever. So the older readers who maybe hated that story, well, my editor, Danny Kazan, who I work on all these miniseries with, he was that kid. That's his favorite
Yeah.
era of Spider-Man. He knows more about it than I do. So everything that goes around comes around, and now those stories, people love those stories.
Yeah, and people dig Ben Reilly. you
Yeah,
know.
Ben Reilly is a fantastic character.
Yeah.
I got a hand over there.
Yeah, okay, and I have a follow-up for, yes, what